Namaste. Welcome to a new Paradigm of Education podcast. Here I am, Monique Sayers, with our special guest, Angela Young. I'm going to introduce her in a moment, but for those people who are just tuning in for the first time, a new Paradigm of Education is a movement in consciousness that's happening around the world. Education as we know it has been changing. It's not just about the pandemic. It's not just about being at home on Zoom. All of that is old school. We are here to awaken and change the planet to help our children move from anything that's not serving them to everything that is serving them with divine conscious souls such as Angela. So I'd love to introduce Angela. Her name is Angela Young. She's a conscious parenting guide. She's a mother of 4 children. She incorporates the philosophies of conscious parenting, self-directed education, and illusion-transcending spirituality to help dedicated seekers transform their life experience into one of joy, connection, and awakening. Wow, that is powerful. I love that. Could you also just explain a little bit about yourself for everybody on the podcast so they could feel into who you are and what you wanted to share? Thank you so much.
Sure. Oh my goodness. Thank you for that introduction, Monique. Hi, I'm Angela Young, and I am a conscious parenting guide and also just a spiritual life coach, if you will. But I've sort of focused my attention on children because I am a mother of 4. And my history is really a path of self-directed education. Like I've just followed my interests wherever they have taken me. And ever since I was about 18 or 19 years old, I had what I considered a spiritual awakening. However, at the time when I was that young, it was still very naive. A lot of it was not integrated. But ever since that age, I'm 33 now, I have just been so attracted to all things in the spiritual realm. And my interests really go towards deep illusion transcending spirituality, like I had written in that bio. And what I mean by that is that we see life as almost like an illusion or a dream that we're in. And everything that is manifesting for us, everything that we're experiencing is here as a gift, and it's here to help us awaken. It's here to help us expand our consciousness or return home to the oneness that we are. So I take perceptions like that and then apply it to parenting, which I think offers such a unique perspective, because you might not always get that in your typical psychological. However, psychology can be very helpful. It's just you might not always get that added little tidbit into the equation.
Yes, I totally resonate and hear with you on so many levels about all of that. And actually, I was just in a masterclass before presenting on this exact perspective that you're sharing. And we actually coined this the energetic quotient, because a lot of the time education has been focused on intelligence, the intelligence quotient and the emotional learning quotient, which school has always been a part of. And myself being a teacher in the olden days back in the classroom, that we were trained that in the university. And of course, what I've learned through my own spiritual awakening as well is that no, we are energy, we are body, we are mind, we are soul, we are spirit. And this is what is education. This is this extra factor in education that can actually help our children to grow better, to learn better. It's not like we're taking away their mathematical brain and saying, hey, don't study math. It's like we're expanding everything so that they can have whatever they want. And it's truly remarkable. So thank you for sharing that. And the oneness aspect as well. It's like one of my favorite words on earth. It's also seriously, it's like my spiritual calling and my awakening was actually at a temple called the Oneness University in India. And I'm a trainer for oneness, a healer for oneness as well. And so I think I naturally admit that just through my energy body and with the children, and I offer blessings and things as well. This isn't meant to be about me, but I just couldn't help but see the alignment. So I just wanted to connect in with that. And maybe we can start by sharing something along that paradigm shift kind of energy of oneness, because I feel like this energy of oneness is a new paradigm of education, in the fact that it's the truth, it's love, it's not divisive, no division, it's like this consciousness that's whole. And I feel like that's what I feel is a real key to the new paradigm, if that makes sense. Did you have anything to share on that, if that leads you into something?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the concept of oneness is such a huge, yet simple concept that many times can be misunderstood or misinterpreted. Um, but it is so useful, and it's probably the core of the work that we do here. So the concept of oneness for me is that everything really is you at a core level. So what we're experiencing in this lifetime is not here to hurt us. What we're experiencing here is offering you a gift. That means when you come into contact with something in your life, the modern day conditioning says that or has a feeling to it that we're sort of like a victim to what we experience. Now, we're not saying that you are necessarily causing, although these words get tricky, we're not saying that you are guilty if something happens that you don't prefer. It's just saying that what is occurring for you is offering you a gift in some way. What is it triggering for you? What is it bringing up? What is it showing you about your own thought processes, how you deal with people, how you relate, your belief systems about reality itself? Through all of our experiences, it's bringing that up for us. And we can see, if we pay close enough attention, if we're willing, that each moment really is a mirror into us. So when we see from that level, even people, circumstances, events that maybe we have labeled bad in the past, now we see from this new lens, and you can sort of feel that it is you. You can feel that it, on some higher level of mind, this is coming and giving you a piece of yourself. And then gratitude is replaced with that feeling of victimhood, or maybe anger, or whatever we were feeling before. We actually are grateful for some things that prior to, or people maybe in comparison to the mainstream mindset would think it's ridiculous to be grateful for. So applying that to parenting, your children are not separate from that law of oneness. So your children are here to help you awaken as well. They come bringing gifts for you. Now, if you're in the spiritual community, I'm sure we're aware with the concept of New Earth children and things like that. So sometimes children can bring you direct gifts, like wisdom that they have. But many, many times it's not that. Many, many times they're bringing you gifts in the form of triggers, gifts in the form of just bringing things up for you. And that's actually the work. It's on more of on an unconscious level. That's where I find so much of the real juicy, juicy work.
Yes, I wholeheartedly hear you and feel you around that. And it can be difficult sometimes, because especially when it's your own child, I've noticed like these energy cords that pull, and it's like, I don't know, it feels like triple the work sometimes than when it's not a family member. I noticed since I gave birth, I have that with my daughter. It's like I am her, I feel everything. And sometimes I need to assess, is this actually my energy? And of course it is my energy, because we are all one, right? But at the same time, I can also feel energetically this pull and push between us. And actually, one of my favorite quotes from the Oneness University is, to see is to be free. And I've always used that, because everything I am seeing, like I'm seeing the ugly in myself, the truth in myself, but wow, am I free? Am I happy with that? Of course, maybe I'm not happy a day, but then wow, boom, it just happens. And a lot of people may align with the word radical responsibility. That might help people to understand it as well in a different lens. But wow, I just love that you're doing that work with yourself and your children, and the conscious community of people that you serve. Can you tell me a bit about conscious parenting? Like, I know it's such a big, broad word, but what does that mean exactly?
Yeah. Let's see. A definition of conscious parenting. Okay, my definition of conscious parenting. I don't know if it's the definition, but my definition is we basically realize that our children are offering us a gift of awakening, and we use our experience with them to heal our own mind. As we do that, we naturally become the parent that we really want to be. It's that simple. Life is here to help us wake up. So when we use our experience in that way, things fall into alignment. That's how you actually become a conscious parent who guides your child in the way that you really want to guide them. So what I love about that definition of conscious parenting is that many times I feel like with parenting, reading parenting books and coaching and stuff, it has an energy of like, I need to memorize all of the ways of being that I want to be the parent that I think that I need to be. And to me, that feels sometimes like constricting. It feels like you have to be someone that you're not. That's not what we're doing here. We're actually using everything that arises to get to a place of peace and what I would call sanity within ourselves, so that we can then step into who we really are. And we're guided to act in a way that is beneficial to everyone. Now, that is magic, because we see that we actually do have guidance within us all the time that is guiding us where we actually want to go. It's almost like we're not really the doer. We're the one who observes and who processes thoughts, emotions, perspective. And as we do that and we fall into alignment, it's almost like we're guided. It's like now you just have a feeling of what is the right thing to do next, and you just follow that feeling. It's very effortless. Yay.
I really, really, really love that. And then my monkey mind has more questions for you. So my monkey mind says, okay, that's great, Angela. But you know what? Sometimes my innate response is to do something that's horrible, like because maybe a trauma from my past appears and it makes me want to throw a tantrum. And I know that's not what a conscious parent is supposed to be doing, right? But I sometimes feel into those pulls of my past, the ugliness, and it triggers me sometimes within my own parenting. And that's a big thing to admit on a podcast, as this educator and teacher of the world. But it's the truths that I notice with my own daughter and I. Like, we love each other to bits, but I notice sometimes there's these pulls. Do you have anything to explain on that, or any tips or anything like that?
Oh, totally. And that is the work. So we all feel that way. I feel that way every single day. So this is the work. So we're not necessarily following every sense that we get and reacting to it and acting it out. We are observing what's arising within us. So we're paying attention. When something feels negative within us, that's our indicator right away that we are not seeing how the higher mind would see. We have this genius, beautiful guidance system within us, and that's emotion. So as we feel that triggered feeling that we all feel, we're all on the same journey together, helping to heal. So it's definitely, I love your vulnerability because otherwise it's spiritual bypassing if we deny that we're not on the same journey as everybody. but here is a very useful way of processing that. It's so simple, really. We just pay attention to how we feel. Whenever our child comes to us with something and then we get an emotional reaction within us, that's ours to deal with. So we pay attention. If it's on the negative scale, although sometimes we make mistakes and we act it out, the goal is to get mindful with it and just feel it for a second. We don't need to do anything about it. We don't need to solve the problem. We don't need to go into the mind just yet. Just allow yourself to feel it, because once an emotion is there, it's not like we have control to push a button and turn that emotion off. It's there. So we just allow it to run its course. It's different though. Allowing an emotion to run its course is different than feeding into all the thought forms that may be the root cause of why that emotion is there to begin with. But if we allow ourselves space to at least feel, maybe we can start to see what those thought forms are and get a glimpse into how they are out of alignment with how the higher mind sees things. And that's the work right there. As we do that and bring ourselves back to center, then automatically we're guided in a way that is more in alignment.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And it's such an art to practice, to see yourself in that space without the stories. And it does, as you say, it does take a lot of higher consciousness work, a lot of meditation an embodiment of that. I feel gifted and that I've been practicing this for over 20 years. So most of the time I'm embodied, but sometimes there's just this massive trigger, and I always feel I don't suppress. So it's like, woo. I really love what you've shared, and I'm sure over time, practicing that more and more, maybe even taking time off or time out if I need, is possible too in that second, because otherwise, to not cause a conflict. Like I've noticed actually as a projection, because I know children can be kind of direct mirrors, my daughter will say to me, please go to another room. So it's like she feels me and she wants me to leave and take time out. So in those moments, she'll say that to me. And as I'm sharing that to you now, I just realized why she's sharing that. It actually something just dropped into my body, and I just had that aha moment. She's sending me away from me to realign. It's not about her. Whereas before, maybe the rejected Monique would be like, oh, my daughter's sending me away. I'm rejected. Why would my daughter do that? I'm the grown up here. I'm making up stories just to elaborate and make examples for everybody. But, it's not that dramatic. But I'm just, I'm just dropping in like to that wisdom that you've shared. Something just shifted in me. So thank you so much.
Yeah, you're so welcome. You're so welcome. And that is exactly the work right there. Whatever it brings up for you, everyone is so unique. So it's going to bring up something different, but we can see it as our child giving us a gift. So whether it brings up our insecurity or whether it is allowing us to feel actually more secure within ourselves, like I'm okay to be as I are. And it's also okay for someone else to say, I want some space right now. How are we making that into a problem? How are we making that into some mental story? That's the work. That's exactly it.
Totally. I totally hear you. And wow, that was really powerful what just dropped in. There's some energetic work happening as we speak. I hope everybody on the podcast can feel into this attunement. Just take a few breaths and allow yourself to sink into this energy. It's so powerful here at this moment. Yeah, thank you. I wanted to shift into a little bit of educational talk, because I know you've been speaking a bit about self-directed education, and also you aligning that with yourself as a spiritual mama. So did you have any wisdom around this type of these two areas of how you educate your children or where they're educated? There's a few questions sort of going on in my mind. You can share what is aligned with that, like self-education, spiritual education, and then maybe later about the children's education or something. Whatever's flowing.
Sure. So self-directed education to me is spiritual education. I think they're one and the same. And the reason being is, taking into consideration everything that we just talked about prior, we can trust the very foundation of life. We can trust the way that it's unfolding, what it's bringing to us, the relationships that we have. There actually isn't a need to overcompensate for life and to stick on top of it a bunch of curriculum that's, a lot of times, if we get honest, it's coming from fear. We're worried that if we don't expose our children to certain things, that they will somehow be lacking. And that's just a core misconcept in my understanding. We're not lacking. That is absolutely impossible. Life provides for everything that we need. Now, that doesn't mean that the parent does nothing and never supports their child. It's just that it can come from a place of feeling whole and feeling inspired and feeling happy and joyful and sharing. And if it's coming from fear, that's okay. It's not like we shame ourselves. It's just that we get mindful using the practice before, and we look at our conditioning of where that's coming from. So as I've gone through this process with my children of allowing them to be self-directed, it becomes self-evident of how useful this really is. It is like a more intuitive and also a more efficient path to learning, because you are not being pulled from your source. You're not being pulled from what you're actually drawn to, which is wise. It's not something that we have to fear. It has wisdom to it. And that is going to take you on the path that you need to go on. The question is, what's the path that we need to go on here? So a lot of times schooling, we have to look at where that motivation is coming from, to educate in the ways that we do. A lot of times that's coming from survival, coming from our ideas of what success is, or whatever it might be in our mind that we are pushing onto our children. but we're here to have an awakening experience. That's what we're here for. And that's going to be drawn to us naturally. Now, along that path, we're totally supported, if you will. I know these might sound like big concepts, but as we jump into the actual practice of this, we see how supported we really are and how much we have sort of overcompensated for our fears and made it seem like we're not supported because we take on a lot of pressure from the ego and go around trying to like fill that void or whatever. But so our children, we can trust that they can follow what they're interested in and still be supported as they do that. In fact, it falls in place quite nicely that they're just drawn towards something that whether it's a career or whatever interests that speak to them, and it can be something that is filled with joy instead of filled with stress.
Yes, I really love that. That's amazing. It's a different way of describing self-directed learning. I've had it described by a few other people on our podcast, and it's beautiful what they've shared as well. And I really love how you've described it, adding in even though they're connected, the spiritual aspect. For me, it adds an extra element in that I am that. So it makes sense to me. I love that. And I love the removal of the ego. And again, I was presenting today around that ego in education, and it's super old paradigm. It just doesn't serve. It's like competition, anxiety, trauma, following a path that's not yours, like all of these kind of following principles that come from like not even from source, right? So I love, once you're dropping into source, that you can then be, okay, well, I'm here, I'm expanded in my heart. Okay, what is it that I want to do? Or what is it that I want to bring out in order for the children to bring that out as well? So the heart is open and it's not in that contractedness, like going into an old type of school exam and the heart's contracted, the mind's contracted. How can you do anything from that state? And who wants to function in that state? And who wants that to become like a neurological pathway in their brain? Like, you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And yet this is what has been drummed into us. And, you do this 5 days a week and then you graduate and then you go and do this 5 days a week for work. And it's like this little chain of events. And if only people could just see, they could be, whale watchers for the rest of their life, hear the song of a whale and transmute that energy out to the love of the world. And that could be their purpose in life, like everybody has a different gift. And it's not this like kind of boxed in little gift that we imagine because we can't imagine anything else because our brain hasn't expanded to know that, So thank you so much for sharing that. That's so powerful.
You're welcome.
And would you mind to also share with us, like around your children, like, so a little bit about their education or like, like how did you educate them from when they were born or from when you've had them until now? Like what's been their kind of pathway and what was innate in you to do that, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So now so education for me is very fluid. So this could change at any moment. But as of now, they go to a Sudbury school, and for those who aren't familiar, that is like an unschooling school. These kids have so much freedom. They show up to school and they are allowed to do what they want. They're not pushed towards like in Montessori, for example, children are allowed some self-direction. It's not, they have to like choose, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Or do you want to do this? It's not like that. You actually go and you're allowed to just do what you want. There are plenty of rules at this school, but the rules can be changed by the students themselves, and everything's held in like this sort of community meeting where everyone discusses why they would want to change a rule or implement a rule, and then everyone votes on what to do. But the rules typically have to do with protecting the safety and well-being of the other students, protecting the school property, things like that, so things don't get damaged. They're very logical rules, and supporting everybody's freedom so everyone can live the life that they desire. And as we go through that process, that's really the process of a developing human or a developing soul, is learning how to actually do what you want to do and not take away others' rights to do what they want to do in that process. There's so much learning there that I personally believe we are sort of robbed of as a child if we're sent into the traditional education. But I say that I don't want to say that and then create fear in people if like your children do go to a regular school. If you went to a regular school, all paths are perfect. So, so perfect. We always get what we need. We don't need to question that. But if something speaks to you, if you're like, oh, wow, I really resonate with that, then perhaps that's the time to investigate and see if it's for you. But we don't need to feel guilt or worry if we've been partaking in different things, whatever. It's all good. But my actual path with my kids. So, okay, I feel like I've lived so many lifetimes in this one lifetime. But when my daughter was younger, she went to Montessori with her brother and sister as well. When they were young, it was more like daycare. And during that time, I was in my phase of spirituality where it was sort of like entrepreneurial spirituality. I was very much so you create your reality and intention and focus on outcome and just don't give up and do the best you can. And all of that is great. But as I've gotten older, there's been a different hue to my spirituality. It's much more of an acceptance of what is arising, a much more of realize. There was a lot of desire back in my 20s that was for it was for money and success. I have to admit that. And my spirituality bled into that. And it was all about creating something, a beautiful life or whatever. Now I've realized life is beautiful just as it is, and I don't need to overcompensate. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to create a beautiful life. That just means that I can accept what is arising, and I have much more of a peace energy to me. Anyways, that long spiel came from the fact that I think the big reason why my children were in Montessori was because I was working so hard at the time. And as I went through my little paradigm shift, I was greeted with just, oh my gosh, overwhelming downloads of the new paradigm. At that time, I still believed that to teach children spirituality, maybe we should create a spirituality school and maybe we should drill spirituality into their head, type of a thing. And now I'm realizing that, oh my gosh, the paradigm shift really is accepting people's paths and understanding that everything is provided for them. Life itself is spiritual. We don't have to like overcompensate and create curriculum for spirituality. It arises naturally. And that's actually the shift, not like bringing spiritual concepts into like our current model of education, if you will.
Yeah, I really love that. There's so much to reflect on. And I think that's really useful what you shared about the Sudbury schools. And that's a really nice option because, unschooling might seem, I don't know, like daunting for some families that maybe 24/7 all day together, it still gives that kind of space and that independence and time apart. And I really like that idea that they have these schools set up. I haven't seen those in Australia, or I'm sure that there maybe are some in some pockets, but they've never come into my world. But it's really nice to understand about those. And yeah, spirituality, it's one of those things. Yeah, you don't want it to be like a scripture. Although I remember I used to, like, when I was in the mainstream schools, I used to watch all the children, and in scripture time, like they'd go off to their different groups, and the ones that weren't in scripture would just be like kind of just wasting time, like coloring in, or like not, it wasn't that they were doing anything fun. Like sometimes the teacher would be like, okay, finish your homework, okay, color this paper. Like it was like kind of just meaningless, like let's fill an hour time type of thing. And I just thought, hey, you know what, why can't they add spirituality or meditation or add something in that spot within those, because these are so pocketed, these schools, like already with their set things, it would be a perfect place to put it. But at the same time, I see what you're saying around the spiritual schools, that life is spiritual, right? I think it's useful perhaps for families who maybe haven't had exposure, or children that didn't have exposure to spirituality. Maybe their parents haven't offered that to them in some way. They're not awake, but it gives the child a chance to maybe wake up in some way. Like, for example, my background, my family definitely were not spiritual. They were pretty much atheist. And so for me to awaken was such a big deal. Like, oh my gosh, spirit, oh my gosh, energy. Like it was such a big thing for me, like to not seem kind of outcasted in my own family, which sounds a bit strange. And I don't think they'll mind saying that because it's the truth. And yeah, so for me back then to have had that concept and for it to be normalized in a school, wow, that would have really helped me actually. But that is the old paradigm still, because I'm old now, right? So I can see what you're saying about the new paradigm as well.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is it's not that it's bad to introduce concepts or anything like that. It's just that you can see, for example, with with your path as well, I don't think there was anything that could have kept you from having a spiritual awakening. That's what it is. And it's almost like the contrast between growing up in an atheist family and then the contrast to a spiritual awakening was what you needed. That was perfect. You could have that whoa moment that then draws you in with such intensity. And so from our sort of limited personal conscious mind, we might, so a lot of times we look and we say, well, wouldn't the world be better if it had this? Wouldn't my schooling have been better if it had this? And wow, I really wish I would have had that insight back then. A lot of times we don't really know what we want. We don't really know what would be perfect for us, because the way that it unfolded was probably exactly what we needed. Okay, I want to sort of piggyback this though with so I'm not saying that we never introduce spiritual concepts to children. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we notice the energy that we are coming from when we introduce things, and we do it without strings attached. So it's sort of like gift giving. The old paradigm is like, everybody sit down and listen to what I have to say and study this and then show me that you know it. And if you're not interested, there's something wrong with you type of a thing. Perform, perform, perform. This is like, let's see if this is relevant for you or not right now. And if it's not, I'm not going to judge you as not spiritual or get all worried about how your future is going to work out. It's more like, I trust your path so deeply that I know that everything is going to be so perfect for you. But when we're a parent and we're introducing concepts, it's like a gift. When we give a gift, we don't then call someone up after Christmas and just make sure that they're using that gift. Are you really using it? Are you putting it into practice? That sort of thing. It's given with joy. It's given with inspiration. It's given from the heart. And children can pick it up or not, right? But we can also trust that we are in our child's life for a reason. They chose us for a reason. And our example is the most important gift that we can probably give them. We don't need necessarily to always lecture or create curriculum based on spirituality. We need to show them by example what it looks like and why it works through our own happiness, through our own connection, through our own joy. That's attractive and magnetic. And then through contrast, children will see how other people adopt perspectives that make their life perhaps not as happy or filled with conflict, all the things. And that's how we learn naturally.
Wow, that's really powerful. I was like saying yes, yes, yes. I was on mute. I was like, yes. It's like hallelujah or something, you know. It's perfect what you're sharing. I love where you're at. Like the peace within and peace with all. It's just so beautiful. Beautiful to hear and beautiful to be able to encompass that, and for everybody on the podcast to feel that as well. Thank you so much for bringing that energy in. And I wanted to move I wanted to move into the children, because just as you were sharing, it made me feel like, wow, these little gifts, these little parcels, these little gifts that are our children that came here on earth to be with us, or we came there to be with them, right? And what is my question around that exactly? My question is just like, you know, what are we learning from them, or what are we co-creating with them? Something along that energy is coming through. I don't actually have words for this one. Can you feel it?
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. So, yes, I feel like a lot of the concepts from this are, it's simple. So everything primarily is for our own awakening. And I think that's a big paradigm shift in parenting, because we think that we're the ones who are going to like our kids everything. Now that might be a part of it, but teaching is coming from demonstrating your own connection. That's how you teach. So your work is really to use all the experience for your own connection. Now through that, I'm not saying that children won't learn from this. It's just effortless. It's just a natural thing. Yeah. And I don't think it's necessarily, a lot of times we have all of these concepts, right? When we have kids, of what we're going to do with them, how we're going to teach them, who our child is going to be. A lot of times children come to us to show us that, exactly like what we talked about before, we don't always know what we really want, and we can trust that whatever is arising within life is what we really want. So children can show us that through being contrasting to what we thought we wanted. Like we imagined this like perfectly spiritual, enlightened child that comes and is just this golden child all the time. And then you know, our child shows to us moodiness or melancholiness or whatever it is. And it's like, you know, it's showing us our own ego and our own attachment to our ideologies. And there's so much learning in that. That's perfect. That's also part of the learning.
Yeah, I love that. And I just had a feeling as well, like you could be like my soul mama and answer this question, because you've got children that are older than mine, like my little girl's 4. So I wanted to know, like in your heart or in your experience, how have your children or your older children shown you, have they shown you like what they want to create in the world yet? Like have they already started to want to create little glimpses? I know that we're changing and we're transforming at every moment and it's not fixed, but I was just curious around that, because you're using the self-directed learning, and I just wondered if they knew, because for example, based off my own schema, I didn't have any idea, right? I was just kind of following this path of the teacher just showing me different things, and I didn't know, and that's okay, it doesn't matter. But I was just curious if they already had that insight around that. Did they share anything like that with you?
Oh yeah. So I think this is every kid is going to be so different, but I think this is inspiring for parents who are like, well, how does it work? How does self-directed education actually work? And we're always, as a parent, we're probably looking for things. We're a little biased. We got to admit it. Like we're looking for things that suit our preferences. We're like, are they doing things that I think are going to be good? You know, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they are, you know, watching YouTube videos that I'm like, what is in it for that? What even interests you in that? You know, that sort of thing. And I have to settle with my own emotions. But to get to some of the positives, which are super fun. So my daughter was really into these certain like anime cartoons on YouTube, I think it was. And so all of a sudden she started to want to make her own, and she found a program that had the art already made. And by the way, my daughter was 6 when she was doing this. She taught herself to read through watching me videos, and reading the lyrics underneath, and then she and playing Minecraft as well in the chat. So then she used that to download apps all on her own. I did not show her how to do this. She actually came to me many times and was like, "Hey, mom, can you download this app?" And next thing I know, she is
Wow.
designing. Yeah. Next thing I know, she's designing her own these little short anime things. She has all these different editing programs. I mean, voiceovers, written text bubbles and words, coloring using Photoshop. I'm just like, what is going on? This is so cool. Yeah, so that's an example. One of my other daughters is way more interested in the crafty type things. Not all kids are going to be mesmerized by electronics. I'm not saying that she doesn't watch cartoons. She spends an ample amount of time watching cartoons. She loves cartoons, but but definitely in comparison to the other kids, she's drawn towards the physical, tactile type stuff, and she's constantly just making experiments everywhere in the house, and she's super active. My son is more of a feeler and a social guy, so he used electronics to teach himself how to read, first off, and second off, through that reading, to get into chats and stuff within his online games. And just I see him really perfecting his comedy. He loves comedy, perfecting the way that he speaks with other children and relates to other children. And that is a roller coaster of an experience. There's been times where he's been really hurt by interactions, times when he feels really proud. And all of this is the learning that he's desiring right then. So you can see with each child, it is so, so different. One of my daughters at a very young age started to be a creator. As a parent, my ego is like, yay, she's doing it, it's working. You know, and I'm proud of her too. However, some of the other kids, like my son, hasn't necessarily discovered what he wants to create, but I just by observing and stopping my maybe critical mind over like, you're just playing with your friends all day. When I just observe and sit with him, I see that there is a depth of learning that is so, so very useful and precise for who he is, precise for what he needs. Yeah, and that applies to all the children. So
I love what you've just shared, how it's what they need. And also I love that you yourself are conscious and able to see that and be the space holder to allow that, to be able to see that without the, like the condemning and the judgment, like, oh, what are you doing on games, like, or whatever. But it's not just games. It's like, well, they're learning different things, and they're obviously going to be doing other things as well, not just that. And that's really powerful for people to hear. And I'd love to follow your journey and see what happens in the future with your children, and as well even with my own daughter who's 4. And I notice like everything that she learns, like she's bilingual, and we never obviously taught her languages, that she just picked them up innately, both languages. And the same with the phonics, she knows both of them without us teaching her the numbers. It's just remarkable. I'm like, where did you learn this? Really, where did you learn this stuff? It's unbelievable that they're just picking up bits and pieces of what they need for themselves, and it's perfect to see. She loves drawing, and I don't know, I'm not even in the place of even considering what she needs at this moment. She's still like, I don't know, she's just 4, so I feel like she's just exploring everything, just this, and I'm just allowing whatever is there to be. So thank you so much. So I wanted to ask you, as our podcast is called A New Paradigm of Education, I ask every single guest that comes along, what is your vision for a new paradigm of education?
That's such a beautiful question. My vision for a new paradigm of education is, I have to base that first off of, I really trust the way that everything's playing out right now.
Beautiful.
I trust that even our current modes of education are serving some sort of awakening purpose for everyone. But if I were to design education in the way that I would do it with my children, basically, the mode of education is just allowing children to be as they are, allowing children to follow the pursuits of their interests so that they can see that life can be learned through joy. Life can be, we can follow that mysterious stream of insight that speaks to us. And through that, it'll bring us all the learning that we naturally have. The reason why that is so important is that it'll completely change the paradigm that we live from in our everyday world. We'll fall into more of a paradigm of trust. Trust in reality, trust in ourselves, all of that. And that will change everything. That'll change the way the whole world is structured.
Wow. Yes, I hear you on that. Just letting go and trusting. I totally hear you. And I feel that, like, I felt it deeply in my body when I was feeling the energy of the new paradigm. It was like just this space of allowance of everything and grace in everything. And I was just saying, like, there's no kind of identification of this is mine or this is theirs or this is a certain path or this is another path, like self-directed learning or schooling or whatever. All of that was gone, and it was just this framework of like consciousness, which I know that's what you're tapping into as well. And that felt like the paradigm in itself, being able to feel that and be in that wholeness with it. So thank you for sharing. I really wholeheartedly hold that space for everybody in the world to just be able to feel into their own hearts what is for the highest good of humanity. So that's yourself as an educator, as a parent, as a teacher, whatever you want to call yourself, even if you don't have children, a space holder for our community, and also for the children of this world. It's all just coming back to what do they need and what is for their highest good. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for having me on. I so appreciate it.
There's one more thing I was going to say before we close, was just if you wanted to just share something to offer. Did you have any offerings that you wanted to share that could help people in any way before we close? That would be amazing, like promotions or offerings.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. So I offer sliding scale. They're actually by donation coaching sessions. So that is for both conscious parenting guidance and also spiritual guidance, just in general, life in general. And so don't let the money hold you back. I mean, I love talking to people. So you can go ahead and reach out to me at my website, angelaroseyoung.com, or on Facebook. I also, for those who are local to Southern California, on February 19th, we're holding an event for moms where we'll have 2 circles with different parenting guides that are going to give very practical advice on how to bring tools back with you home. But also, the event is super fun. Like, you get a 30-minute massage, you get a Reiki session, you get a one-on-one oracle card reading, just a bunch of fun, as well as connecting with women. So if that is practical for anyone, you can check that out as well at our website, which is mysticmamasoul.com.
Yeah, I think every mama needs that. It sounds like a beautiful
Totally.
day, doesn't it? Yeah, let's fly there. No, I can't fly, but yeah, that's really powerful. Thank you so much. I'm really, really honored to have met you today and to find out all this wisdom about you in terms of your life and what you're offering. And I really feel your energy of purity and love and joy for humanity. And that's just really evident in this podcast. So thank you so much.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you so much for having me on, Monique. It was a bunch of fun. I appreciate it.
So that's closing the New Paradigm of Education podcast. For those of you who are wanting to subscribe, you can always join us on our YouTube channel. And we also offer a group, the New Paradigm of Education, in Facebook for anybody who's wanting to join a group of change makers, educators, and parents across the world. So namaste, everybody.